We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
It's time to buckle up for making sense of the madness.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and now a little more than a week and a half out from Bilderberg. I still have not read the excellent piece by Charlie Skelton. Now I got to get Charlie on the program as well, but not only was it one of the few pieces, it is the definitive piece, and really was reflecting where we were in reality during this time period as bombs were going off in Iran and the true movers and shakers and their minions of the predator class are meeting, are boating, are gallivanting. These people make up a significant portion of the, again, Anglo-American, Israeli, and really Saudi power structure at this point. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are offshoots. Just as David Rockefeller was frustrated that Japan could not come to that table at the time, you have the Trilateral Commission. There's many of these round tables. This is, to me, the round table of round tables. So we're going to read this piece. And, I've also been asking the question of where was David Petraeus during this time, because he wasn't on the list. Apparently he's out of Los Angeles on the West Coast. And, I found this just recent interview with him on CNN. And let me just say this. I don't know if we're going to do the whole watch-along thing. It's like 17 minutes long. But the glee and the happiness of both CNN and David Petraeus for what Donald Trump has initially done with these strikes should tell you all you need to know. And of course, the headline is that this isn't necessarily over. Couple that not only with the rhetoric that, quote unquote, Iran was trying to kill Donald Trump, and maybe there are specific intelligence assets, groups aligned with specific intelligence assets, groups that would like to kill Trump. They didn't like the Soleimani thing. Remember, I said that was a bad news Brown. I never said that was a good thing, okay? No matter what, something happens to him, who do you think they're blaming? And now you have these quote-unquote sleeper cells in the United States being picked up. Take what I just said about groups wanting to quote-unquote assassinate Trump and apply that to these sleeper cells, whatever they do. We're in a bit of a honeydew of a pickle here. All right? Because we've already seen a lot of the true colors, if you will, of some of the quote-unquote alternative media that has been just as bloodthirsty as the mainstream, quite frankly. Not everybody. There's been a few standouts, okay? But, once again, there are those, and if you watch the past couple of forums, debates here, the Union of the Unwanted, people that think it's all theatrics. Obviously, I don't believe that. I was encouraged by Trump clearly being extremely upset, not only at both sides, but Israel in particular, and then drawing out that very, very sincere, in my opinion, F-bomb. That's how I'm calling it, okay? So what I want to do here is I want to read this article. We may do the David Petraeus watch-along as well, or at least the beginning of it, and so everybody can see how just happy David is. And I want to point out, there was no media coverage of David. It looks like I might have X'd out, but we're going to do that in a second. We're going to bring him up. And for the week of Bilderberg, you can't find him. You find him all over the place. The week before and immediately after right now in the mainstream. And Petraeus, again, heavily involved in Bilderberg, obviously a former CIA director, big time contractor and advocate insider within not only the military-industrial complex, but the tentacles that surround it, okay? So I need you to thumbs this video up, subscribe, share. Hey, we're growing on YouTube for the first time in half a decade. I want to thank everybody for that. So if you're new, please go check out some of the old documentaries, some of the old videos. See that I'm not one of those guys that, believes in Johnny nonsense. I'm not perfect either. But on the big stuff, I normally at least get most of it right. All right? And I'm going to tell you again, I don't think what's going on is good. And let's get into the power structure in a moment. Folks, please consider donating to the broadcast. $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. There are no paychecks right now. I am going to be speaking to a mainstream local outlet. Hopefully next week. We'll see what comes of that. Follow me on X. Just like this, we're losing followers on X. We're stuck in the mud. It's funny. I had somebody reach out to me just today who hopefully I'm going to be having on the broadcast. My man, R.A. the Rugged Man. You want a great album, again, in the last 5 years. It's probably been about 5 years since he put it out. All My Heroes Are Dead. Just a fantastic album. Stands up. Can't wait to hear what he has coming out next. But very, very talented guy. He goes, he sent me a thing. He's like, man, your stuff never comes up in my feed. I had to look you up to see what you were up to. Most people think just one day I'm not in their feed anymore. And, I hit him up. Like I said, hopefully we're going to be getting together for a broadcast. He's really, really an interesting guy. And he's coming off the heels of an international tour that included dates in Russia. And, I should have done that on this show. I think I posted on my Facebook. I didn't post it on this. His stuff comes up less and less on X all of a sudden, too, to me. Weird, R.A. But he was basically describing, some of these people saying, oh, he's a puppet of Putin because he's out in Russia doing shows. It's like we're trying to reach people. It's called Team Humanity for a reason, folks. Team Humanity for a reason. So let's get into it. Charlie Skelton, China haunts Bilderberg's talks as usual suspects plot world domination. The corporate, political, and tech bigwigs meeting in Sweden are worried about an authoritarian axis. Maybe AI drones will fix things. God bless you, Charlie, for your dry sense of humor. Deep within the glittering bowels of Stockholm's fanciest hotel gave ruminations on the future of the world. Ruminations of the future of the world are taking place. A heady throng of tech billionaires, ministers, corporate titans, and the King of the Netherlands. Gotta love that. Gotta love the kings still around. Bilderberging have convened in Sweden for the 71st Bilderberg meeting. The publicity, shy annual policy conferencing that has sustained conspiracy theorists, hosted this year by the fabulously wealthy Wallenberg family. Fantastic. The 4 days of transatlantic talks are taking place at the swanky Grand Hotel, which is owned, like so much else in Sweden, by the Wallenbergs. The Swedish PM, Ulf Kristersson, turned up for a welcome dinner on Thursday evening and would have been about halfway through his second plate of meatballs when the first of Israel's rockets dropped on Tehran. Isn't that lovely? Yeah, I bet those meatballs were delicious. What better time for the prospects of World War III to go up a gear than in the middle of a Bilderberg confab, with nuclear proliferation slated for discussion? How about that? And the heads of NATO and MI6, the two America's most senior military officers in the room, they're joined in Stockholm by the CEOs of several defense suppliers such as Palantir, Thales, and Anduril. How about, again, wow. How about that? Even the quietly spoken host of the conference, Marcus Wallenberg, happens to run an arms company. He's a chair of Sweden's largest defense contractor, Saab. The Tehran attacks slot happily into the conference agenda. How about that? Which includes the topics of the Middle East and the rise of an authoritarian axis. What Bilderberg insider Nadia Shadlow, a former deputy U.S. National Security Advisor, describes as the growing collusion among revisionist powers. According to Shadlow, an authoritarian axis is rapidly coalescing around China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, disrupting the belief that an international community has taken shape in the aftermath of the Cold War. Now, folks, go back to my video when Bilderberg broke out the day and they put out their agenda. I named every single one, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, as the authoritarian axis that they were opposing. Charlie's spot on. He's the man. Like, he's the guy that, God love his soul, he draws away from this most of the year. This isn't his whole thing. But he understands the gravity of what's going on and taking place at these things. And he sums it up so succinctly with, unfortunately, a dark humor, but I don't know what else you have. Right? Like, again, go back to my debates. And everybody's acting, you can't vote your way out of it. All right. So what are the options then? I don't think you can, quote unquote, violent revolution out of it either. I think that only makes it worse. I think that's ludicrous. So you can't vote your way out of it. You can't have a violent revolution. I mean, quite frankly, I've always said you need a reformation of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. You got to do that peacefully. And look, you got to do it through the maneuvers that you have. And that is, unfortunately, voting, but hopefully taking over large sections of local governments first. Work your way out. Let's continue. Earlier this year, The Economist magazine, whose editor sits along Shadlow on the Bilderberg Steering Committee, struck a similar note, declaring the rupture of the post-1945 order is gaining pace. But The Economist handed Donald Trump a fair chunk of the blame for junking the transatlantic alliance. And by the way, again, Bilderberg post this conference just over a week and a half ago, wrapping up, okay? Less than 2 weeks ago. Couldn't be happier with what's... Listen to Petraeus. They're gleeful on all this. They're so happy. Trump is now doubled down with NATO and all of it. And you're going to hear Petraeus call for boots on the ground in these nations. We need boots on the ground. Could be a lot of talk of regime change and boots on the ground all over the place unless things turn it around. What this means for Bilderberg is that 7 decades of hard work nurturing the post-war international order are in danger of going up in literal smoke. And I truly do believe that. And I think that that's why, Trump, at least in that sense, is way more of a threat than any other president preceding him. Has any other president spoken, the way that Trump did about Israeli military aggression? And look, I'm not saying it's good enough. I want to make that clear. I'm just saying it hasn't happened. He's broke a lot of the norms. But let's get into this. Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, has taken every opportunity to lever the U.S. and Europe apart. Europe being more independent, he said recently, is good for the United States. Back last summer, before the election, he said the United States has to focus more on East Asia. That is going to be the future of U.S. foreign policy for the next 40 years. And Europe has to wake up to that fact. The presence in Stockholm of Samuel Paparo, the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, is a sign that Bilderberg has taken this to heart. Also, there's another member of the authoritarian axis which looms far larger than Iran over this conference: China. Though the name China doesn't actually appear on this year's agenda, the heightening struggle between America and China is in a specter which haunts at least half of the topics being discussed, from the geopolitics of energy and critical minerals to defense innovation and quote-unquote resilience. Just a couple of months ago, Eric Schmidt, who we also talk about on this broadcast quite a bit, the former Google boss and longtime Bilderberg board member, warned that China is at parity or pulling ahead of the United States in a variety of technologies, notably at the AI front. Now, let me say this before I read more and what Schmidt says. I think, again, we are extremely advanced with AI, but that doesn't mean we've worked everything out. Okay? Well, and what do I mean by that? I mean, all these technologies end up having blind spots and get improved numerously when they hit the public arena in a consumer market because everybody gets to work on them. It's not in this compartmentalized environment. Okay? So let's continue here. Schmidt suspects that it will only be a matter of 3 to 5 years before some form of superintelligent AI is achieved. The geopolitical stakes, especially in the race with China, are enormous. He says because attaining superintelligent AI would mean total and unassailable military domination. In short, it would give the winner the keys to control the entire world. And let me say that again. I'm constantly talking about artificial intelligence and the dominance there as the future dominance of full spectrum warfare and dominance, right? And they all say it. And that means, once again, it's going to be about narrative control. It's going to be about guardrails. It's going to be about energy technologies that you're not going to be allowed to use. And they're going to keep that compartmentalization model as long as we allow it. But here's the problem. Due to the immense power requirements for large-scale AI, beating China to the superintelligent punch would require potentially 100 times more energy than is currently available. The head of the International Energy Agency, Faith Birol, who is conferencing this year at Bilderberg, recently posted on X that global electricity demand from data centers powering AI is set to soar in the next decade. No one seems to be talking about that. Again, they've scolded us all for our carbon footprint and the amount of energy that we use. And now they're going to use way more energy for their AI, their silicon, their false consciousness. Awesome. In this desperate winner-takes-all race for the keys to the world, in which the geopolitics of energy becomes even more important, power stations, along with data centers they feed, are going to become the number one military targets. Cue the AI drones. For the time being, before AI invents completely new and unimagined ways for us all to kill each other, drones are perhaps the biggest practical application of AI in warfare. There's a healthy swarm of drone manufacturers at this year's Stockholm Summit, sharing their hopes and fears about defense innovation. Hovering alongside Eric Schmidt, there's the chairman of Thales, a leader in the fast-growing market of unmanned aircraft systems. Buzzing nearby is Gundbert Sheff, co-founder of German drone and AI company Helsing. One of the early investors in Helsing is also present, the CEO of Spotify, Daniel Ek, which presumably means that the Helsing drones will have the best playlists booming out suggestive songs as they swoop down to attack. Charlie, Skelton's humor, and you can follow him at DEYOOK, by the way, on X. My man. I mean, think about it, again, because it's not just about the drones. It's about narrative control. It's about what's hip. It's about what's with it. We've talked about the founder of Spotify, Sean Parker, being the guy that created Napster and also heavily involved in the evolution of Facebook and also an attendee of Bilderberg at one time. The investment interlinking of Bilderberg participants is particularly intense around autonomous drone tech. Saab is an investor in Helsing. Helsing is collaborating with leading AI companies, Mistral, whose CEO is attending the conference. Mistral was funded by Schmidt, who's a huge fan of military UAVs. You bet he is. Schmidt's recent AI Drone Expo, which took place last month in Washington, was co-sponsored by Palantir, which was set up by Bilderberg insider Peter Thiel, who is a major funder of Anduril, whose CEO, Brian Schimpf, is also in Stockholm. Schimpf is a former employee of Palantir, whose CEO, Alex Karp, is also on the board of Bilderberg, having been ushered onto it by Thiel. And so it goes. You know, again, you'd think all these things would actually be important in an intelligent discussion on both sides of the political spectrum, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. Who's talking about this? You see the incestuous relationship with a guy like Eric Schmidt and Peter Thiel? Yeah, they might disagree on the minutia. They sure agree on the big stuff. Thiel's fingers can be found wriggling around in an awful lot of pies, not least the juiciest pie of all, the White House. The two senior White House officials at the Stockholm conference, Kevin Harrington and Michael Kratsios, both used to work for Thiel Capital, and Thiel's famously long list of influential acolytes include none other than J.D. Vance. Only a few days ago, Vance was on a podcast defending Trump's proposed Palantir-powered database on every citizen, which was described by MSNBC as an unprecedented spy machine that could track Americans. Vance waved away any such concerns. I don't believe that Palantir is collecting any information. Yeah, I guess that you don't believe that the sky is blue, that water is wet, that steak is delicious, and it comes from cows, but all those things are real. Just want to point that I don't believe. Well, I don't believe in Santa Claus as an actual thing, but I do believe that Palantir is absolutely collecting information. How about that? Thank heavens for everyone's freedoms. Palantir is run by self-confessed classic liberal Alex Karp. In a recent earnings call, the idiosyncratic CEO said his company was busy building really great things in order to power the West to its obvious innate superiority. Karp throbs with what he calls productive narcissism. At Palantir, he insists, we're proud of our moral stance. His philosophy, as he sums it up, is this: if you've done something big and important, you're probably a good person. Palantir is successful. Ipso facto, it's doing good. As The Economist put it, fast approaching is the might is right world. It's a kind of Gordon Gekko morality that would be heartily approved of by Wall Street legend and Bilderberg faithful Henry Kravis of KKR, of whom Gekko was actually based. Of course, not all the tech luminaries at this year's Bilderberg are thinking in terms of world domination. Dennis Hasbus, the co-founder of DeepMind, turned up in Stockholm with the 2024 Nobel Prize for Chemistry in his back pocket and some rather optimistic rhetoric about AI, which he thinks will usher in an era of radical abundance. He thinks AI as the cavalry coming to save us from ourselves. Boo earns. Boo earns. I wish that were the case. It could be. If we were utilizing artificial intelligence in a way to empower the vast majority of humanity, that'd be great. I've only seen it on a mass level enslaving humanity, rejecting humanity, separating humanity from their biology, from their natural instincts, from their mental clarity, from their overall morality towards other human beings. Just my thoughts. Just my thoughts. Let's keep going down here. He says, I'd be very worried about the society today if I didn't know that something as transformative as AI was coming down the line. I'm pretty worried, buddy. And Jack Clark, the co-founder of Anthropic, likes to think that AI replacing us in every last occupation will help us find new ways of living fulfilling lives. His vision of the world in which freed up from our jobs will engage in creative, fun exercises in getting AI to build us things or make us things or carry out competitions and games where people can play with them and one another. They promised this same thing in the 50s with technology. And I'll say it again. It went from one person having a 5-bedroom house, 3 kids, 2 cars, wife didn't have to work, and sometimes 5 kids, even more. You know, huge, and to nothing. To 2 people working all the time, going into debt, and maybe having a couple of kids, if you're lucky. And a ton of people just on the government dole. So I'm sorry, I'm not buying it, Jack Clark. Pulling back for a moment from the AI endgame to the world in 2025, there's one rather less jazzy item on the conference agenda worth mentioning: U.S. economy. But even this has everything to do with China. Taking part in Stockholm Summit is Republican Congressman Jason Smith, a vocal fan of Trump's America First trade policy. Smith has pledged to continue fighting to combat the economic and national security threat China poses to our great nation. He's fully aligned with fellow conference goer Robert Lighthizer, an influential economic advisor close to Trump, who told CBS News earlier this year that China, to me, is an existential threat to the United States. Lighthizer is urging strategic decoupling from Chinese trade, and most importantly, he says we should disentangle our technology. I don't know that that's possible. I think it's already disentangled in many ways. But here's where Trump's trade vision intersects with not just the long view of Silicon Valley's bullish billionaires, but with the long-standing transatlantic vision of Bilderberg. Thiel recently called for a very drastic reset with China and urged other nations to do likewise. And this reset, he thinks, can become the basis of how we build a stronger Western alliance for the free world. In other words, look at our success and join us. Of course, the only thing wrong with this self-fulfilling, meritocratic version of Western civilization is that if the Chinese succeed in beating the West to the keys of the world, it will mean that they were the good guys after all. Ending on some dark humor once again. Charlie Skelton, amazing article. Folks, thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. We're going to get to David Petraeus. Again, Petraeus nowhere to be found and doing no press during this time when Bilderberg was there. Not on the list. I really wonder what he was up to. But look, this guy's very happy that Trump did these strikes. And he's saying it's not over and we need to have more. And we have to have more of this alliance. And CNN's rooting him on. So here we go.
I want to first ask you about some, kind of interesting tone shift from President Trump at NATO before we get right into the Iran thing. You may have heard, but he said, I came here because I had to, but I leave feeling differently. All these leaders, they love their countries. They're not, I think he said, they're not ripping us off, and we're going to help protect their countries. Then he said on Article 5, which caused some controversy as he appeared to, explicitly endorse it before, he said, we're with them all the way. What do you make of this? It's probably good news for everybody if you think it'll last.
I think it's very encouraging. It's wonderful news. He's achieved something that no other president has ever achieved, even though all of those repeatedly chastised their counterparts and countries for not doing all they should for the defense of their own continent. So this is really encouraging. I think the leadership of Mark Rutte as the Secretary General has been very impressive, following on the great leadership of his predecessor. The novel idea to get to 3.5% of...
Oh, stop it right there really quick. Remember his predecessor, he's there, and his predecessor, Jens Stoltenberg, is now on the steering committee of Bilderberg as well. So in a short period of time, they've gotten Trump on board to the point where CNN and David Petraeus are rooting him on.
GDP on defense, but then another 1.5 on related investments in roads, bridges, all the other infrastructure that is so necessary for pushing forces out to Eastern Europe, and then the reaffirmation of Article 5. But I'd note the most important affirmation of Article 5, again, the collective self-defense component of the North Atlantic Treaty, is that we have boots on the ground in countries that are contiguous to Russia or in Eastern Europe. And that's really what matters. As long as they are there, that...
So once again, boots on the... Are you trying to get us into even more of a... Yes, you are. These people are crazy. They're crazy.
President speaks far more about our involvement right away if Russia were to ever invade one of the NATO countries in the wake of whatever happens in Ukraine.
Can I ask you then, people have talked about the madman theory and often applied it to Donald Trump. They did when, for instance, he sought to have that summit, and he did with the North Korean leader. Didn't come to anything, but nonetheless. Do you think all of this...
Let me stop it right there. Think about what she's saying right there. The madman theory. He went and talked to another leader of another nation state that is supposedly on what? That axis of authoritarianism that we're talking about via Bilderberg. How dare he? No. These people are the madmen and mad women. They're the bloodthirsty warmongers, and they're acting like they're the benevolent adults in the room. They're the authoritative figures.
I'm just going to say, madman theory and action over the last 2 weeks actually could be a dramatic success.
I do, actually. And again, there's a madman theory that, you don't want to get in a fight with a madman. But then if you get into a crisis situation, so this is pre-crisis deterrence, you will shrink from, again, creating the crisis with a madman because you're not sure what he will do. The problem is if you get into a crisis with a madman, you might do something sooner than you would otherwise for fear that he would. This is more the angry man theory. And I think he has done this very effectively. He has expressed his displeasure repeatedly. They have clearly taken it very seriously. There's been a lot of soul searching in Europe. I've been in Europe many, many times this year. They're very concerned about his response, and they have taken action as a result, and that is great to see. So however we got to this juncture, having been a NATO guy as a 1-star, 3-star, 4-star, and earlier, it's wonderful to see our European allies stepping up in the way that they have.
You saw Petraeus right there, right? Smiling, smirkling, loving it, angry man theory. Those people aren't talking about peace. They're I'm going to say it again. Right now, not only is the United States just ripe for something terrible to happen, to be blamed on Iran, and then with the help of what? Maybe Russia, maybe another proxy nation, maybe North Korea. I mean, we heard a lot of whoppers when it came to 9/11, didn't we? And Trump, already with a large portion of the public buying into the Iranian assassination theory that I brought up in the beginning of the program. I mean, dude, they almost shot you in the head. And if they do it this time successfully, we're all in for a world of hurt. A world of hurt. That's my personal opinion. Maybe you disagree. In fact, if you do disagree, give me a comment down below, down in the comment section. Thumbs it up, subscribe, share. If you're new to the broadcast, please check out all the archives, but especially all the documentary films that are free of charge in the playlist section. Loose Change Final Cut and Fabled Enemies on 9/11, and then Shade the Motion Picture and Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, really about the topic of globalism. Consider supporting the broadcast. $5, $10, $15 big donors. I need you now more than ever. And also, give me a follow on X. As you know, to this guy, it's not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. Absolutely love you guys, and I will see you all on the flip side.